Welcome back to the American Experiment Podcast. Kathryn, what do we have on the docket today?
Well, today, Stop the Tape is back, and we have footage of Governor Walz floating some insane election conspiracy theories, as well as lying to Minnesotans about federal guidance on the new COVID vaccine. We're also celebrating Christopher Columbus Day. On the back half, Minnesota Speaker of the House, Lisa Demuth, will join us to talk about the so far mythical special session.
Let's dive in. What a wild news cycle we have entered into this week. We've got hostages getting released in Israel after such a long conflict there. Wow, Diane Keaton, rest in peace.
Whoever that is, by the way.
I don't understand how you don't know who that is.
The Godfather.
I've never seen.
The First Wives Club.
Never seen. She's never broken into my small circle of entertainment that I consume, which is not saying much.
You need to watch The Godfather.
No, too long. Too long. However, I have been watching the welcome home videos with all the hostages, and they are incredible. If you need to cry, go watch some of them. They're beautiful and amazing.
It's true.
It's a long time coming, and I'm sorry to all of the people who didn't come home. You might notice a lot of people were pointing out online that all the hostages that did come home today were men. You can only think about the horrific things that have happened to the people who weren't able to come home as well. So prayers for families on all sides of that.
Yeah. Bill, we're excited to have you back on the show. I feel like it's been a few weeks.
It has.
No, we haven't done Stop the Tape in a while.
It's time for Stop the Tape.
Stop the Tape returns.
Love it.
Last week, the Star Tribune had this summit, North Star Summit, and they invited Governor Tim Walz, and I think Pritzker was there as well,
Governor
right?
Pritzker of Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which is important to us. Actually, you might think just the governor of Illinois, but he's actually the biggest donor to the Minnesota DFL. So
for some reason.
Wait, not National Democrats. He's the biggest donor to the Minnesota Democrats, is the Illinois governor.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's important. Listen to what he says, too, when we play it, because this is really their biggest donor. I mean, what he says has an impact on what we do here in Minnesota, which is insane, but it's true.
And you can think of it the other way, too. Like, that shows whatever the DFL party is doing here, much of which is insane, he strongly endorses.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, so like you said, Star Tribune did this speaker series. They're probably going to continue it. It's good material for us, I think. They did a couple of panels, and one of them, well, like you say, the two governors. As you're going to see, at least it was an excuse for Governor Walz to dress like a governor. So he actually put on a suit, which I appreciate. Maybe others don't care, but he seems to dress like when he goes to Farm Fest, he tries to dress like a farmer. So today he dressed like a governor, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, so. I saw it was pheasant hunting opener. Is that right?
Yep.
He has one red flannel. Have you guys noticed this? He does need to get more. He has one. He needs more. If he's going to do the flannel thing.
It's a uniform, get the uniform on. But he did get a bird, and he did manage to handle his shotgun this time, unlike when he was running for president and he had trouble with the shotgun and people made fun of him and said he couldn't use a shotgun. Now I know he can, and then thankfully for him, he successfully used his shotgun and got a bird.
This could be what wins him a third term as governor.
TikTok.
This is clearly what matters to the people of Minnesota.
But we're not going to stop the tape on Walz's successful hunting episode.
Wait, someone made an AI though of him missing the bird, and then all of these birds come and attack him. Did you see that? It's very funny.
I don't know what content you consume.
The comment
you spend your time.
The comment section of Tim Walz's Twitter X is hilarious.
Oh, very true. Very true.
The
replies on his profile is
negative.
Yeah, that's a trip.
It's so negative. I know. Oh God.
Well, let's start. We're going to start. This is going to be like a governor's conspiracy theory episode. So these two guys, governors of states in the Midwest, Minnesota and Illinois, sit on a panel and spout some ridiculous conspiracy theories. So we're going to have Governor Pritzker lead it off. We can comment on that a little bit, but then Governor Walz agrees with conspiracy theory number one. So we'll let Governor take it away.
It's clear to me that he is targeting Democratic cities, blue cities, and especially blue cities in blue states.
It's talking about Trump.
There are blue cities in red states, but he's targeting blue cities in blue states, and particularly blue governors, Democratic governors. I believe that there is a much more nefarious reason that he is not stating, which is he wants us all in big cities to get used to the idea that it's okay to have military on the streets. Why?
Why?
Because next year there's an election, and he's going to leave a lot of these folks in place. And when we have elections, because he threatened this in 2020, number one, he's going to guard the polling places. So you're going to see soldiers
You're gonna see
outside your polling place. That's going to intimidate a lot of people. And especially it's going to intimidate people who are not Republicans.
All right, stop the tape. Okay, so the premise here is that they're talking about the president deploying the National Guard to Chicago. You can watch the whole thing, but the governor of Illinois tries to gaslight us into believing that Chicago is very safe, one of the safest cities in the country. There's 19 states that are less safe. The top 19, he has all the statistics, these Wallet Hub surveys that look at ridiculous things to determine. So we're not supposed to read the news about how many people were murdered and shot in Chicago over any given weekend. We're supposed to believe that it's safe. And then the president's deploying the National Guard there, not to protect the citizens of Chicago and Illinois, who are also citizens of America. So all of these leaders represent the same constituents. President Trump has a responsibility to the people in Illinois and the people in Chicago to keep them safe, just as Governor Pritzker does. But these governors are like, you stay out, we'll take care of it.
But you're not.
But they're not taking care of it. The only reason the National Guard is being discussed being deployed is the crime and the safety issues in his city. But so the real reason, according to the governor of Illinois, is that he's trying to get everybody used to the fact that we can have troops in the city and around, and then because election year is elections year, and we're going to have troops at the polling places. Mark the tape, mark it down. October, whatever day we are here, in 2025, right? Next year, it's not going to happen. This is insane. But we just keep putting these guys out there. The reason we do these is so don't believe these guys when they say things, because so many things they say don't come true. Here's another example. We can check in next year. Let's see what Governor. Go ahead.
Well, and just on the public safety thing, I mean, that's the highest responsibility, I think, of a local government or a state government, is the safety of the people that live there. It's got to be the most important thing that they do, is keep people safe from crime. It's one of the reasons we have government to begin with. If you're going to abdicate that responsibility, like JB Pritzker has, like Governor Walz has in Minneapolis, absolutely should the federal government go in and protect their citizens as well? Heck yeah, absolutely. And then look at other cities. I mean, if you travel to other big cities, I've been lucky enough to be to some big cities. Rome, for example. They have men all decked out with huge guns all over the place, okay? We are different, actually, in America in a lot of ways, because we don't do that. We have huge places where there's tons of tourists, tons of, economic activity, and we don't have that kind of presence. And I think it could be necessary for safety in places like Minneapolis. I mean, clearly we need something to change.
Yeah, I love how he sets that up as like the scariest thing you can imagine. Like they might actually have soldiers guarding our polling locations to make sure things are safe. I'm like, all right.
That's something people all over the world do to keep people safe.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen.
No, and I get that, but it's just, I mean, I had an issue with basically everything he said there. It's just another angle, as though that's the scariest thing you can imagine.
Yeah, and I really did think all the conspiracy theorists were on the right. That's what I've always been told.
He says in this, if you watch the whole thing, Governor Pritzker says like 3 times, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Don't get me wrong, but...
I was like, let's just put a tinfoil hat on there just to be safe.
Yeah.
So let's hear our illustrious governor agree with the point made by Governor Pritzker.
I think it makes... it would be logical for them to come here. We fall into exactly what it looks like they're trying to target, blue cities in places that he wants to make an impact. You can certainly chill voting in states like Minnesota if you target Minneapolis and St. Paul.
All right, stop the tape.
You are right, Walz. We do look like a state that struggles with law and order and needs help from the federal government.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh my gosh. What a self-burn. I'm sorry. Go on.
You can certainly chill voting. So he just agrees with the point. Like we're going to have National Guard troops at the polls in 2026 election. It's these scare tactics. Walz is really good at this. I mean, just take a nugget, take a kernel, make up a conspiracy theory, and then use it to scare Minnesotans onto your side. It's like, oh, we need to do this. And this whole constituency thing I brought up earlier. This was classic when the riots happened here in Minneapolis in 2020. Walz had the attitude that Minneapolitans weren't Minnesotans. It's like, well, Governor or Mayor Fry is responsible for Minneapolis. I can't go in. I can't bring the National Guard into there because says it's a Minneapolis. Governor, those are your constituents too. You represent the entire state, including everybody that lives in Minneapolis. You have to keep them safe. If the mayor needs your help or the mayor can't do it, which was the case in the riots, the mayor actually did ask for your help in the right way, by the way, it all came out after. But he acted like they were not his people. Like, oh, well, those are their guys, and I got my guys. So that's one thing. But the idea that we're going to have troops at the polls is insane. It's not going to happen, but they say it as if it is. This report, I don't know who's interviewing them. I don't think it's a reporter. I'm not sure who it is. She should have challenged that, I think, and said, wow, that would be insane. And has Trump ever said anything like that? And why do you believe that? And has that ever happened before? You know, that's we're going to write that down. We'll check in with you next year. But okay.
Well, they're good at staying on message. What they've decided their message is on the left is that Trump is an authoritarian, despite the fact that there's little to actually evidence on the other side of that, Trump making America a freer place than it was under Joe Biden. They've decided that's their message, and they're going to go with it, whether it takes complete lies or not.
All right, next clip. The next clip, I'm nervous looking at what I'm looking at because it looks like a long clip. It's actually a very short clip, so we'll roll it and make sure that it's the right one. Maybe I'm just paranoid, but this
so
is
you can actually
this is,
zoom in and out.
Okay, good. He's just got stretched for me. Okay, I should trust Isaac, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right, trusting Isaac.
That's a T-shirt. Trust the producer.
Trust the producer. Okay. This is another conspiracy by Tim Walz that I shouldn't even set it up. It's another conspiracy by Tim Walz about Donald Trump. Go ahead and roll the tape.
And you think he's kidding when he talks about wanting to run again? You think he built a ballroom so that, JB Pritzker, when he moves in, can have that ballroom? So, no, he built it for himself. All
right, stop the tape. Stop the tape. All right, so now the conspiracy is that Donald Trump is going to renovate the White House, which has been needed for decades. And, he's raising money himself. He's spending his own money on it because that's why people haven't done it, because it looks bad if you spend government money on your own house. By the way, Governor Walz had no problem with that with the governor's mansion that he lives in, but most leaders didn't want to do that. So Trump's going to do it. He's going to bite the bullet. He's going to set the place up. They host a lot of big events there now. They host world leaders there. They don't have a ballroom to do it in. He's going to build the ballroom. He's going to pay for it. Consider it a gift from Donald Trump to the country at the next presidents as he leaves. But of course, we can't consider it that way. If we were Tim Walz, we have to think about it. He would only do that for himself. So therefore, he's going to run again. Well, he can't run again, Governor. You can only there's no counting in the Constitution for him to run again. You know that. It would be, again, a conspiracy theory, insane for a president to do this. I think the president, this is his best troll. I think this might be his best troll when he drops hints like that, like I'm going to do it.
Trump 2028.
Because it just drives people like Tim Walz nuts because they can't get their arms around that. He said, he's trolling you, Governor. Relax. There's going to be no third term for Donald Trump.
And there are ramifications to having a public figure like, the governor of Minnesota say things like that. I see one of those No Kings protests probably every other week in the area that I live. And I mean, it's like 100 to 200 people reliably on the same corner. People absolutely buy into it and buy into the fear mongering that, leaders like Governor Walz are doing, calling Trump, an authoritarian, a Nazi, and every other word under the sun.
Totally.
Next clip. So now he's getting a little trying to. All right, what do we do? The reporter asks, what do Democrats do to recover and to from this horrible things that's happening in Washington D.C. And so Walz is going to give us some advice on we got to stick to the issues. We got to run on the issues because we'll win. So let's roll his issues clip here.
We got to give people a reason that we're not just opposed to this guy because he's awful on this. We've got some real solutions for things like housing. We got some real solutions for things like childcare. We got some real solutions around energy costs and renewables, and really get those out there.
All right, start the tape.
What a train wreck those 12 seconds were.
Sorry. You laugh before the punchline there, but
energy costs.
Yes. Oh, you want to start with energy? Yeah.
That's absurd. Well, that whole list was absurd.
His renewable energy mandate, just go to AmericanExperiment.org and read any post by Bill Glahn or Sarah Montalbano, and you'll see that his renewable energy standard is costing us way more money in energy. We don't even have time on the show. We could have a whole show on that alone. We've done shows on that with Sarah. She's written papers on this. The cost of the renewable energy mandate is to increase electricity prices for Minnesotans. We used to be below average in that. We are now way above average in that, and we're going the wrong direction. It's the direction that Europe went. It's the direction that Germany went, that England went. It never works. It always results in more cost for consumers. The idea that wind and solar are the cheapest form of energy is insane. It assumes no other backup plan, like all the baseload power you need when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. It doesn't count the cost of the transmission, the grid that has to go into connecting all of that wind and solar. So no, the energy is bad. That's issue one.
And then let's go into the housing and childcare, because he knows that those are issues people really care about in Minnesota because they're so affected by them. He doesn't mention that the reason that people in Minnesota are so affected by these issues are because of his policies.
Yes.
It was his policies that made houses way more expensive in Minnesota than any other state.
Yes.
And childcare way more expensive because the regulations that exist in those two industries, thanks to his government, are insane, and they make it hard to build houses and operate childcare facilities.
Right. And every solution that he would propose would just be government handouts or rent control, all these policy items that end up making the problems worse.
Makes it worse, makes it more expensive every time.
Yeah.
Again, read anything by Martha Jolamoli on our website about housing and childcare, and you'll find the overregulation, just like you said, always increases the cost for the consumer. It messes with the marketplace, basically, and ruins it for consumers.
It's just crazy that he's been governor for how long, and he's like, wow, these are big issues for people. It's like, because of you. And you want 4 more years?
Yeah, how long has your party been in control of the state,
Right.
Walz? What did your trifecta do if it wasn't solving the very big issues you just named? Whatever,
Well,
man.
if that's what he's going to run on, I say bring it on. I mean, because they'll have an answer for that, surely. He didn't mention education. You know, the education governor, Mr. Teachers Union, he can't mention education. Remember, I think we had on a previous show, we talked about graduation rates being the metric that he chose. He lowered the standards, increased graduation rates. We're graduating people that can't read or write at grade level, and that's his metric. So he didn't even mention education. So that's his issue set. We just thought we'd stop the tape on that. All right, switching gears, different location, more gaslighting from Governor Walz, our favorite topic. This one is he did it again. He got a vaccine. He got a shot in his office. They brought the medical professionals in, and he rolled up his sleeve.
Grace wrote in our notes, plus Walz got his millionth COVID booster shot. True. What number is this, I wonder? Did anyone ask?
Don't know how many he's had. He got the flu shot too, which is fine. But so they basically, basically,
it's safe.
Right, more gaslighting because in September the Trump administration, Secretary Kennedy came out with new guidance from the CDC, from the panel on vaccines for COVID. And I don't know whether to do this first or last, but I'll just do it first. The new guidance basically is we're not saying everybody needs to run and get a COVID shot. We're saying talk to your doctor and see if it's good for you to get a COVID shot. So instead of saying everybody get a COVID shot, that's our recommendation. They're saying talk to your doctor about getting a COVID shot. So Walz takes that and gaslights into, you're not going to get access to a COVID shot. So he conflates recommending getting a COVID shot to no access to a COVID shot. And then he starts using words like freedom. In Minnesota, we will guarantee the freedom to get a COVID shot. We'll have access. We want to make sure everybody understands and that there's going to be freedom. So it's complete gaslighting. Of course, there's freedom to get a shot and there's access. It's insane that they're with it. So let's run the clip and you can see what he says.
I'm really grateful for the Minnesota Department of Health that was very quick to clarify Minnesota's rules, very quick to clarify that we disagree vehemently with the misinformation, false information, confusing information being put out by federal authorities.
Confusing.
So here in Minnesota, rest assured, the science is being followed, all the safety precautions are in place, your freedoms of healthcare decisions is being kept in place, and we'll continue to make sure that those access stays
stop
available.
the tape. So you heard him say the freedom,
He said freedom to make your own healthcare decisions? Yeah. Freedom to make freedom?
Wait, you're going to remind us of what he did during COVID, aren't you?
Oh my gosh. What in the world? You can't do that. You want to talk about freedom? Where was our freedom during COVID? We didn't have any freedom. We were all forced to get jabbed up, especially if you worked for the State Department. I mean, what in the world?
Well, and this is the guy who then tries to turn around and paint the other side, Trump, as authoritarian.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. When this is the most democratized version of choosing whether or not to get a vaccine as we've had over the last 5 years since COVID hit.
So misinformation, false information, confusing information is just a change in policy direction, which is the prerogative of a new president, a new secretary, a new CDC panel. And they said, hey, consult with your doctor instead of we recommend.
Which
so it's
is
a change.
Good change, because you should be consulting with your doctor and not Governor Walz or
Right.
whoever is the person in government right now. You should be going to your doctor who knows you, who can understand if this is good for you or not. We should never have this kind of universal guidance like this, like we did during COVID, because what do people like Governor Walz know about whether or not I should get the vaccine? Nothing.
Yeah.
But it's just typical Walz gaslighting, and we point it out because it's very effective. I mean, he gets his base riled up, but he gets way more than any kind of political base riled up and concerned about, oh my God, am I going to have access to a vaccine? I watched our governor, and he made it seem like I'm not going to have access. I'm calling my pharmacist, and finding out. The pharmacist is like, yeah, we got plenty. Come on down, we'll give you the shot. It's no problem. So it's just, I don't want to say dangerous, because I think they say, oh, this is dangerous rhetoric, but it's irresponsible rhetoric, and he's doing it, to rile people up eventually for a political gain, I suppose.
Yeah, I also have not heard anyone use the words "follow the science" unironically since like 2020. That was pretty funny. That was a fun throwback.
Well, I have a medical freedom issue of the day, and that is I need more Claritin D, okay? It's ragweed season. Is anyone else struggling? I've been dying for weeks, but you can't get it enough to take it every day because they think you're going to make a meth lab, okay?
Oh.
I'm not going to make a meth lab. I just have allergies. It's driving me insane, okay? So,
Clearly.
If you...
Maybe try meth. I don't know.
Wow.
Should I skip? Is that what they're suggesting? I can't take one of these every day. It's, God, Walz,
Can I
please.
recommend you? St. Paul Allergy Clinic. And I go there every 4 weeks. They give me the jab. I get the jab, the allergy jab. It works awesome.
I have gotten the allergy jabs. They work great. Okay, I won't go into my long reason why my jabs are on hold because my guy switched clinics. Anyway, I just need the Claritin D.
All right.
Governor Walz, give me health freedom. I'm not going to make a meth lab.
Let her follow the science, dang it. Oh my gosh.
Well,
Do we have a HIPAA problem now? I think you've revealed way too much about your personal health
My
care.
allergy. I think I told her to try meth, so we're way beyond that.
Yeah.
Well, was that our last? Was that our last?
That's
stop
our
the tape
last stop
clip?
the tape.
That's
is
pretty fun.
That is your service
I do
for the
miss
week.
stop the tape. We'll have to do more
Yeah.
of that.
We need to do more.
of that.
Bring it back.
I think that's my favorite segment. It's also Columbus Day for those of you who celebrate, and it's what's the other one? Like National Indigenous Peoples Day. For those of you who want to celebrate that instead. We thought this was an appropriate occasion to remind everyone that the Christopher Columbus statue that sat at the Minnesota State Capitol grounds since what, like 1931?
1931?
Was ripped down 5 years ago and is still to this day sitting in a storage facility somewhere and has not been replaced. Not even moved to a museum. I still can't believe that. Don't you think just for appearances, maybe they'd throw it up at the Minnesota History Center? Although they're insane, aren't they? So.
Well, no, you're not going to get that from Walz or Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, who said she didn't shed a tear when it came down.
Yeah.
Even though there's a process, if you're going to change a statute or put a statute up at the Capitol grounds, there's a whole committee and a process. Once they tore it down, they ignored the process, and Christopher Columbus is still in storage. I'm actually surprised. I hesitate to say this out loud because they've got a year left in their term, but I'm surprised they haven't replaced Christopher with another statue.
Yeah, they talked about doing so, didn't they?
But they'd have to run that through the process, and it would take a while, and there's some rules and regulations on that. And they'd have to agree who that might be, but
there's still like a stump, right?
Oh yeah,
out
the
there,
pedestal is there, and it's beautiful because if the Republicans ever take back the governor's race, one of the first things a new governor could do is go find the statute and then put it back. It's going to take some. It's going to have to be fixed because they wrecked it but it's mostly intact when they tore it down. But yeah, I think it can and should be put back up. I mean, it's just despite what you think about Christopher Columbus, the reason the statue was there was to celebrate the Irish or the Italian. I'm saying Irish. The Italian American heritage in the state of Minnesota. And there's a great picture of when it was put up, and there's the whole Capitol Mall is full of Minnesotans with Italian descent who are celebrating this, and they raise money for it, and they put it up, and it was a way to celebrate that part of Minnesota, and just to spit in their face and tear this thing down. Without a process for political reasons.
And when that group, Italian Americans, were completely victimized and treated poorly as early immigrants to the U.S. So to have that statue in Minnesota celebrating their heritage was a really big deal at the time it was put up. And to tear it down is really disgusting.
Yeah, and there's nothing inherently wrong with celebrating any kind of Indigenous Peoples Day or Native American Day, whatever. It's the fact that they're trying to replace Christopher Columbus, who signifies the greatness of the West in America.
Right.
I mean, he's a symbol. So you can certainly find all kinds of flaws, things that Christopher Columbus did wrong, all kinds of things. But it's a symbol for the greatness of the West and the fact that the people who came before us, our ancestors, were able to create the greatest country that has ever existed and done the most good in the history of the world. And the fact that the left wants to attack that is truly insane and sad, in my opinion. So I think as conservatives, we have an obligation to do whatever we can to advocate for the people who came before us and the greatness that, despite any flaws, they did do incredible things for us who are beneficiaries of America and this country, and also the rest of the world.
Yeah, President Trump has come out officially this year saying that we should celebrate Columbus Day. So I do think we shouldn't hold our breath for Governor Walz to replace the statue anytime soon. He can't, align himself with a fascist dictator like that. But President Trump did say, today our nation honors the legendary Christopher Columbus, the original American hero, a giant of Western civilization, and one of the most gallant and visionary men to ever walk the face of the earth.
Gallant.
How lovely. I didn't know he was gallant.
He
Thank you
also,
for telling
in that
me.
proclamation, he also criticized left-wing arsonists.
Yes,
for-
left-wing arsonists want to destroy his name and dishonor his memory. And happily in Minnesota, we are home to many such
There was a
arsonists.
picture of Peggy Flanagan right in the president's proclamation when it says left-wing arsonists. Her picture is right there. I'm kidding.
Is that
It's
a
not
joke?
true. It's not true. Stop the tape. Stop the tape. That's not true.
Really walking the border on this episode. Wow. Any final thoughts before we
Nope.
kick things over to our back half
Get us
interview?
out. Get us
No,
out.
happy Columbus Day, everyone. Go celebrate. Thank a toxic male in your life. Thank a masculine male.
Thank an Italian American.
Thank an Italian American.
Thank a member of the Knights of Columbus.
Go watch The Godfather.
Like me.
Yeah. No, you don't
Yes.
have to go that far.
Yes. Celebrate Columbus Day by watching The
full circle,
Godfather
Grace.
and
Thank you.
the death of Diane Keaton.
American Experiment is supported by thousands of individuals like you. To join the movement, go to www.americanexperiment.org and click the yellow donate button. From all of us here, thank you. We are joined now in studio by Minnesota Speaker of the House, Lisa Demuth. Lisa, Madam Speaker, welcome back to the podcast. It's so good to have you here in studio with us.
Thank you. Good to be with both of you today.
You're kind of the woman of the hour. I feel like it's a kind of a big gift for our little pod here at American Experiment. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the last time you were on, we were thick in the midst of the DFL House shutdown, actually.
Yes.
Right? And do you remember back to that chaos of you had just been kind of elected Speaker of the House.
Yes.
And it was still in that weird phase where they weren't showing up to work. Well, how far we've come since then.
Yeah, really. And
An
how
odd
much
year.
we've been gaslit since then by them saying, "Oh, we don't shut down the government. We would never do that."
23 days in the state of Minnesota.
Exactly. Well, I mean, speaking of that, what's going on right now has also been kind of a huge deal with this special session, mythical special session, I think is what I called it on our preview, because what in the world is going on? Did Walz officially say anything to you about ending his plea for a special session?
So I get most of my information from Governor Walz as far as looking back when he did call unofficially for a special session or said that. I read about it on Twitter. I hadn't actually heard directly from him. And then since then, we did have about 5 4-leader with the governor meetings. So we did sit down and we tried to discuss through. As you know, we haven't been called back in. But the important thing that I said in every meeting, during the meeting at the end, I reiterated the fact that, again, the governor, just for your viewers and your listeners, the governor is the only one in the state that can actually call for a special session. He doesn't need an agreement. He can just do that. So I have reiterated every meeting, Governor, when you call the special session, House Republicans show up and we will be there ready to do the work. What I wasn't able to do was to guarantee votes or the passage on things that hadn't even been written yet.
Right. Well, and it seems to me like he doesn't even want to call a special session, really, because it would be forcing some of his members to take what I think would be a very unpopular vote, some of the rural DFLers. Do you get that sense from him?
I do. So looking back to, the end of August and then the beginning of September, the tragedy that the Annunciation School and Church faced was absolutely horrific for anyone in the state. And the reason I even say that a little bit deeper is I am from Rocori, the school district. I used to be a Rocori school board member from Cold Spring. All 4 of my kids were in the district when we experienced a tragedy back in 2003. So as a parent, I had 2 kids that were in the building, and my kids came out physically unharmed. But there was loss of life for 2 high school students then. And so looking at the situation that happened, it is horrifically tragic, and no one will ever be the same because of it. So when I look at that, I remember back to all of the parent meetings in my community that were held. They all talked about bullying. And if you translate that now, this number of years, really mental health. And so when we heard about the tragedy, the first thing we started to do, obviously, compassion for the families in the school community. But then we looked at what would make a difference. And we really feel, so I'm talking about House Republicans, but then as a parent, and now a grandparent, what we really feel is the things that would make the most difference are looking at school safety, mental health, and then punishing criminal activity, especially as it has to do with firearms. So when I heard through Twitter that the governor was talking about a special session, no, I hadn't heard anything, but I was actually looking forward to, okay, how do we come together in a tied House and a Senate, because of open seats that they don't even have, neither caucus have a majority. What could we do looking forward and addressing some of the issues? That's a perspective that I had going forward. We would absolutely show up because that's what we do, but I couldn't guarantee some of the things that he was saying.
Right, because this should have been a moment for unity and for both sides to come to the table and say, you know, we can all agree that something needs to change.
Yes.
Like this kind of tragedy should never happen again. Of course, some things are unpreventable, but Minnesotans want change now.
Yes.
And yet it seems like the DFL stance has been, we're going to come to the table, you guys have to come too, but we're not going to give an inch. You're going to come to the table and you're going to pass our thing, and we are not even going to tell you what our package is. You're just going to promise us to pass it, and that's what the special session is going to be.
Right. And with the tie in the House and then the makeup of the Senate right now, there is not even a clear majority in either one of the bodies with either one of the caucuses. As you know, we've been able to do really good work this year as far as bipartisan agreements. So any bill that passed out of the House and then got passed into law by the governor this year had to be bipartisan. That's the way that we need to look at either a special session or when we go back as scheduled for February 17th. Everything has to be bipartisan. So instead of trying to choose political sides and divide, this is a perfect opportunity that the governor could use to bring all sides together and have meaningful, changing conversations going forward and figuring out what we could do, rather than already choosing sides and trying to divide and point the finger one way or the other. The other thing is, as you said, Grace, that these are bills that aren't even written. So we don't know what the language even was. But what I will tell you is some of the things that have been talked about by the governor did not even get introduced when they had full Democrat control in the state of Minnesota back in 23-24. Not that they didn't get passed. They wouldn't even introduce those bills.
Right.
So we have to have a starting point at some point, and it is not dividing along political lines. It's bringing people together to figure out what is best for the state. We haven't seen that yet.
When you had those conversations with Governor Walz and other leaders, did you feel like Republicans had a fair seat at the table? Because I hear the things that you're saying, and I think mental health, I think things you can have bipartisan support on. I even saw Peggy Flanagan the other day say, Republicans want to talk about mental health? Fan-frickin-tastic, I think was her quote. Well, why then didn't they do the special session? Why didn't you come together with Republicans and move forward on those things? So my question is, do you think you were fairly represented at that table with Governor Walz?
With our tie, me being speaker for the 2 years, we had a seat at the table. Again, the governor is the only one that can call the special session. If he wanted to, he could do that. He could have done it. He still could do that. And we're ready to get to work. What I wasn't able to do, again, is promise votes on things that we hadn't seen. The comparison is made that, well, we did come in for a one-day special session in June. So we finished our work up in May, but we needed one day just to finish things up. The difference between what's being talked about now compared to what we did end of May and then June was the fact that all of those bills had been introduced, gone through full hearings in the committees, and had been worked on. This would be new legislation that we haven't even seen. That's a big difference between all voices on all sides of issues deserve the right to be heard within the committee process. Usually when you have a special session, there is an agreement or a framework. You saw that in June, that 4 leaders and the governor did have a framework because we had worked on all of that in the room together on bills that we had already heard we were going to be working through. And that was the structure that we were looking forward to, is how that would play out. And so did we have a seat at the table? Yes, I was there. Were we heard? I think we were heard, but it wasn't what I believe the governor wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, too, because so we went out into the field just a few days after the shooting at Annunciation, and we polled Minnesotans. We said, what measures would you like to see enacted to prevent a tragedy like this from happening again? And the vague gun control notion that the DFL is pushing right now, it didn't even rank in the top 3 choices that people were presented with or gave us. Number 1 across the board was mental health. And so when you think about, priorities for the next session, if somehow a special session was ever called, what is the Republican view of what that mental health package might include? Can you get into specifics at all?
We know that we're short in beds when it comes to mental health, that we don't have enough beds for those that need it. Specifically for kids that need psychiatric help, as far as pediatrics. And so we really need to look at the funding, and are those beds available and they're not staffed, or don't they exist, and what is the true need? I don't know what the funding would look like. I don't have language that I can talk through right now, but just recognizing the need. We have heard for the last few years that people that are in mental health crisis that need help are being stuck, and they're held up in our emergency rooms. That means they're not getting the treatment that's needed, whether it's inpatient or outpatient, but a little bit more than what they actually need. It also means that it is taking up resources that maybe someone with physical emergency room needs at the time are not getting served, and it's not serving people well. It's not serving those in a mental health crisis or that need it the most, those that are waiting to get into emergency rooms, and it's putting pressure on our hospitals, both the physical space and then, of course, reimbursements and just the cost that is needed there. So I would look at 2 different ways. Our schools, they also have counselors available that can really help families that are in crisis, that can get resources to kids that are needed. So we would look at it as, what are the needs for maybe social workers or school counselors? We would look at, for the adult care, when there is mental health care given earlier rather than later, it really helps. I was visiting with law enforcement from my local area actually last night at an event, and they said these people that are homeless, that are facing mental health challenges and get spun out because there's somebody that needs that care a little bit more, or they end up in our jails, and that's not where they need to be. They need care. It's a larger problem. And we have to look at it as a multifaceted way to approach and serve. It serves a couple different ways. Those that are in crisis or need mental health care, those that are in the community that need safety, and then, of course, our schools in ways that are needed. So it's a bigger topic that can't continually be pushed down the road, but we have to be making changes. So whether that is special session or in February, we know that is going to be a topic that we will discuss and look forward to solutions.
It's interesting to hear you talk about that in light of everything we've seen coming out of Joe Thompson's office and the state when it comes to fraud and the way that our government has misused funds that are meant for good in our communities. You look at the Housing and Stabilization Services program that you read about and you think oh, that sounds like a nice idea. And then it was all of it completely fraudulent. And none of it was used to help people. Millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, right? In the end, from all of those programs. It's incredible. And I think there's some Minnesotans like myself who have some distrust of government programs after that. I hear about the things that you say when it comes to mental health, and I think, wow, I'd love to help people in that way. Is there any fear that with what we've seen in Minnesota and all of the fraud, that anything you do in the legislature to try and help with these problems is going to be abused by people?
I think that there is systemic fraud in the state of Minnesota. We have watched that over the last 7+ years where it hasn't been taken seriously. So a couple of ways that we're looking at fraud. With our organizational agreement, we came up with the Fraud Prevention and Agency Oversight Committee. The work that is done here at American Experiment has been great with a fraud tracker where people can just be aware. And so this state has been known now, and it's making its way out to the public, that we have a problem with fraud. It's something that the Office of Legislative Office of Legislative Auditor has said over years that there's a lack of internal controls in a number one of our agencies. The governor now, for the first time, has finally fired a deputy commissioner, a person within an agency that had fraud, only because that person was set to testify the very next day. The timing was interesting. So
I was going to say, I hear it's very hard to get fired from the government.
Well, either way, our
You're
tax
not to testify, apparently.
either way, our tax dollars need to go, as you said, to those that need it the most. So when we have tax dollars going out in fraud, and I'm glad that we are actually starting to prosecute fraud, but that means it's taken place. I want to focus more on the prevention from the very start. So when you ask, is more fraud going to take place? Possibly, and we want some more internal controls in the agencies. We have made a way for some of the fraud, some fraud prevention things to make its way through. There's whistleblower protections, there's other things. But we were also looking at, in 23 and 24, there was over $1 billion of taxpayer dollars that went to unaccountable nonprofits. We were able to scale some of that back. And I'm not saying all nonprofits are bad. I would not say that, but it is ripe for fraud. So when we're looking now, the laws that we changed, or the way that we were allocating dollars this last year, went more to grants. So there's a little bit more of an oversight rather than named nonprofits that we are finding out some have done the wrong thing. That, again, when those that do the wrong thing continue to do the wrong thing, it makes it harder for those with the right intent and that we're actually serving people. Minnesotans, there are some people that need to be served by these programs, and that's where our focus needs to be. We need to stop it in the front before it happens rather than only prosecuting at the end. The other thing is the Office of Inspector General. It's something that passed nearly unanimously in the Senate, a separate external office that would focus on doing the work of an inspector general. We couldn't get that through the House. We tried. Even the last night of session, we tried. The governor had said in his State of the State, sign a bill or pass a bill, put it on my desk for an OIG, Office of Inspector General, and I will sign it. Well, we tried in the House. We couldn't get it done. That, I think, would be top of mind when we return in February, or if we come back earlier in a special session.
I did want to ask one more thing about the special session before we move on. What do you make of this announcement from Governor Walz that he's going to host a series of town halls on gun control since he's not calling a special session? What do you make of that?
He could have hosted town halls at any point in time. He absolutely could do that. Again, he is the only one to call a special session. If he thinks that's the way to go, he should be calling that special session.
So if you don't mind talking a little bit about looking forward into 2026, what are your priorities for the next session? It's coming up already, and there's a session followed by a big election, so I'm sure it's top of mind. What are your priorities in the Republican caucus?
With just having a tie in the House, so think of this as 1/2 of 1/3 of state government. We knew that we had a budget that was not going to be sustainable. We were looking, after having an $18 billion surplus, and all of our taxes and fees were raised another $10 billion. And I want to enunciate on the B part of the billion there. I mean, it's a huge amount. We're headed toward a deficit. What we were able to do together with our Democrat colleagues, but in a tied House, we were able to deliver the largest spending reduction of $5 billion from biennium to biennium. That is excellent work that needed to take place. There were changes that we wanted to make to do with paid family leave that we could not get over the finish line. There are other things to be done, but our priorities when we return in February is to find additional ways to address the issues at hand. School safety. The school safety dollars right now only go to public schools, not private schools. They had asked for that in 23 and didn't get it. If there are additional dollars, or if we could change the language so that it could be more evenly spread for Minnesota kids, that would be a priority, something that we want to do. And already, you hear pushback a little bit of people saying, why would we do that for private schools? We already do that for transportation and for food service. There are other ways that we are already doing that for private schools. We have to look at that as serving Minnesota kids. So that would be, I can't say that it's absolutely number one, but absolutely a priority as we go in. Fraud, we have to take a look at fraud. If there are any changes to paid family medical leave, we need to take a look at those. I was just meeting with a childcare center actually this morning, and they were concerned with paid family leave. They said, so if all of a sudden we have 5 employees that are out, and remember, they can be out for up to 20 weeks. If they're out for whatever reason, what do we do? Well, they're going to have to hire staff that they can't hire right now. But think of this, if people, and it's not just childcare, so think childcare, schools, hospitals, clinics, any type of business. In this case, though, if a childcare center can't hire to backfill that empty spot, all of a sudden they can't, because of their ratios, can't serve kids, which means then parents are going to be home from work if they can't piece together childcare, and then whatever job they have had is going to kind of, it's a domino, absolute domino. Now, I would be the first one to say businesses more than likely want to do the right thing for employees. Making sure that they have recruitment and retention tools, taking care of employees when they need time off. Almost every business is going to say they want to do that, and maybe they already are doing that. But a state mandate that is on every size of business, no matter what, every industry with really no safeguards, that is very concerning. So that's something we would talk about. You talk about 26, and with the big election, that is everything in Minnesota is up for election. House Republicans with a tie. This last election, we actually held every one of our 64 held Republican seats and then gained the 3 that got us to the tie. What that said is Minnesotans were ready for a change. We have been able to prove that we are ready to go, and we have done an excellent job in leading our state, even with a tie. So that's 1/2 of 1/3 of state government, the things we could deliver on that have made Minnesota better, and that's what we want to continue to do. We are ready to take the full House majority, and we are heavily looking at, specifically a seat that we lost. The person that won it, the Democrat, won it by 14 votes. 20 ballots were thrown away. Our candidate has already stepped up and said, I am running again, absolutely. And so those seats that were really closely held are our main focus. Holding all 67 seats is very, very important also.
Now, thinking statewide, of course, Governor Walz has announced that he's going to seek a 3rd term. If he were to win it, it would be historic. It's never been done in Minnesota before, very politically ambitious. I hear you say about, Minnesotans are ready for a change with everything that's happened since he stepped into office in 2019. Do you feel like Minnesotans want a change in governor leadership, or are things going to continue down the same path they voted for in the past?
I do believe that Minnesotans are ready for a change in governor leadership. Without question, that is where we're at. It would be a historic 3rd term. We recognize that. But Governor Walz being on the national stage really shined a light on his leadership and where our state has been. Think back, because wasn't it just, I think, 2018 maybe that we had even the Super Bowl, and think of how vibrant Minneapolis was and downtown, and the whole state was
Justin
really
Timberlake.
excited. Okay, yeah.
And now they're canceling the holidazzle.
Yeah. But when you think of the vibrancy, and then not just the vibrancy of a major city, but think of where our kids were educationally and our kids were succeeding. Well, those rates have been dropping since Governor Walz took office, and he's a teacher. So when you look at everything over that time in office for him, Minnesotans are ready for a change.
We covered this earlier in this show, but there's a clip of Governor Walz on stage with JB Pritzker, one of the largest donors to the Minnesota DFL, as I always like to point out. Doesn't live here, but he is their largest donor. Just a funny thing. And he mentions a couple issues that he thinks are top of mind for him going into the next legislative session. I remember 3 of them: childcare, housing, and low energy costs. And I think, who caused those problems? Who caused those issues to be so fundamental to Minnesotans right now? Why are we in a crisis when it comes to childcare and housing? Why are we dealing with super high energy costs? They're because of the problems he created. So, I think as long as Minnesotans realize that and are able to make that connection, I think there could be room for someone else. But I'm a little pessimistic. I'm on the edge. I'm borderline.
I always have hope.
Good, we need you.
I always have hope. But those exact things, I think it's time for Minnesotans to be aware of what's going on. And we can't just, everybody's usually busy working jobs, raising families, just doing their life. But as you know, we are losing wealth out of our state. People are choosing to retire someplace else, that people are moving. And we want this to be an excellent place for families, for entrepreneurs, for large businesses, small businesses. We have to get back to that. And if Minnesotans educate themselves on the choices that they have when they are voting. So I'm not just talking at a governor level, but definitely your state representative, your state senator. We also need to be looking at our city councils and our county commissioners, because it starts at the lowest level. And it's very easy to not know who those people are or where they stand. If it's someone that's running as an incumbent, look at their voting record, look at what they have said at all levels and what they have done. And does that still align with you? Are we better off with them in leadership or not? If it's a new candidate, go to a candidate forum, look them up. Reach out and have a phone call or, some type of a meeting, but educate ourselves. We have early voting here in the state. It is law. You don't even have to wait till November to start doing that education. Start watching on all of those candidates at every level right now. I think that is going to make for better outcomes in our smallest cities, to our largest cities, to our state government.
That's great advice.
Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our
thank
viewers?
Thank you for the coverage that you do and the topics that you bring up. This is a great way for people to become educated if they choose to tune in. And so thank you.
Well, thank you for coming, Speaker Demuth. We like to say that we ask the dumb questions so that our viewers don't have to. I think that's kind
there is no dumb question.
But thank you so much for being with us here today.
Take care.
Thanks for sticking with us and making it all the way to this week's episode of the American Experiment podcast.
I would like to bring up that we have a YLC event coming up, Young Leaders Council. It's our group at American Experiment for people about in their 20s and 30s. And we have a Halloween party, one of our favorites of the year, Brews and Booze. This year, it's at the Minnesotan in White Bear Lake on October 30th. So go to americanexperiment.org/events to get your ticket. It's only $5 and comes with your first drink.
We should also mention nominations for the 2025 Golden Turkey Award are open. I think we've gotten more nominations this year than ever before. Very exciting. You have until October 31st to get your ideas in, and then voting will open officially. So go to goldenturkeymn.com to submit your ideas. And before we close out today, I did want to read our favorite comment on last week's podcast episode. This came from Patrick. He says, if news like this was delivered by anyone else, it would be depressing. But you're upbeat, positive, and this can't possibly be real life, so I'm going to laugh my way through it. Attitude helps the medicine go down. Thank you, Patrick. That's the vibe I'm trying to get, at least.
That's so nice. That is exactly, that's our essence that we try to go for, is things might be so insane, but sometimes you just have to laugh. You can't be doom and gloom all the time.
So thank you. As always, please remember to like and share and comment and subscribe and turn on notifications. Rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Tell your friends. Thank you to everyone who said hi to us at the fall briefing. It was a joy to meet you all.
We'll see you next week.